Hello dreamers, how are you? Today is the day of another fantastic tutorial. We are going to see something new and very interesting. And that is how I made Jinx in one of my latest videos on Arcane. I will show the doll system I created to make the character of League of Legends move. Everything directly on Dreams. We'll skip the drawing part, otherwise I think it would take a couple of hours for this tutorial. But let's talk about the doll system. I think it's very useful to create great fluid animations for our characters. Dreams does not provide us with a similar tool at the moment, but I believe that something like this could arrive in the future. For the moment we can only do it manually. And what I mean are doll systems that we can find, for example, on Adobe Animate or Cartoon Animator. Very powerful tools that provide us with a skeletal system where we can add the parts of the character that we want, and with the animation templates that the software provides us, we can move our character as we want. Think of a system like this here on Dreams, where we can create animations, share them, and experiment together, where it would be enough to only modify the elements that make up our characters to animate whatever we want. Also in this work there is a doll system for the child's animation, so think about drawing your character on Procreate and transferring the parts on Dreams, on a doll system already set up, so that we can animate it as we want. Before starting today's video, I thank you for your constant support. We have surpassed 300 subscribers and the community is increasingly active around the channel. We continue to grow together in this wonderful dream. I want to remind you that if something is not clear to you, write it to me in the comments. Some steps can sometimes be difficult to understand, but I'm here to help you. Then like the video please, activate the bell, and as I was telling you before, in today's video we will see how I created the doll system on Jinx, which allows us to move our characters within the scene without having to draw frame by frame. The parts that make up the body, such as arms, legs, etc., and the rotation of the head. We see all this in this project, but I removed all the camera movements, so maybe Jinx will stop running. What interests us today is to understand how the character's body is composed. As for the background, the explosion, etc., we have already seen some of it in other tutorials, and we will keep something new for the future. First of all, the main group, that contains all the elements of Jinx's body, and in the version with the explosions, there will also be all the background elements, so that you can move everything together. The camera in this way records the whole sequence, following the action. We enter the group and find 3 other subgroups that make up the character's body. The group that is above everyone's head. I zoom in a little so you can see better. Jinx's head. The other large group that includes the entire body. And finally the group of braids, which have to stay behind everything else. As we will see later, the animations will have to correspond to the movements of the head. The animations match, as you can see better here. To create this effect, I just had to animate the sequence with the head and hair inside the same group. Then copy the whole group and bring it behind everything else, and remove the double elements from one group and the other. Here you can see better, the braids are still in the main group of the head. I copied the head group once all the animations were finished and brought it under the body group. Stay attention that the animations match the ones above. Then I hid from the group above the elements that I want to stay behind. And this is the result. Very interesting. This part of the hair and the braids like this have the same animations as the head, but it stays behind the body. We'll see the animations on the head later, but I like to make Jinx's head float like this. Let's see once again. Now I remove the braids for now. Let's see all the elements that make up the body. Let's start from the part closest to the head and go down trying to understand all the pieces into which the character's body is divided. I hide the head for the moment. The first element we find is the neck. A piece free from the body and was the anchor point is at the base of its shape. You will ask me why it's not inside the head group. Precisely because its anchor point will have to be different from the face, to be able to do this type of movement, for example. Having the ability to create more complex and realistic animations. We now find the other subgroups, where there are, for example, the arms. This one on the right, and this on the left. We then find those two elements of the belt, which I used to make the torsion of the body more realistic. Let's zoom back a bit and find the other two groups of legs underneath. And under all the elements, the central body of Jinx. But now let's go and see in detail the arm groups, for example. Let's start from this. I enter the group and find another subgroup that contains the forearm and the hand. This one. So you can rotate everything together, like this. The whole group rotates around the same anchor point, marked by the red arrow. Whereas if I take the whole group, I can do this rotation, with the anchor point fixed near the shoulder. Dreams, with the ability to create groups and subgroups with different anchor points, I have the opportunity to create a very useful doll system for this type of animations. In this case the shoulder will remain still, only the arm will rotate, creating a very good effect. If there had also been the shoulder inside the arm group, I would have problems with misalignment with the body behind. But with this trick I got a great animation without having to add another layer. Try to optimize the levels you need as best as possible. The fewer they are, the easier and faster it will be to create animations. Let's enter the forearm group one last time, where we find the last subgroups which contains the hand and the fingers. So that the hand also has its anchor point, to be able to do this type of rotation. This doll system allows us to create any type of animation by making the character walk, run and jump within the scene. It may seem very complex, but I assure you that once you have learned the system, it will be much faster for you to create realistic and very fluid animations. And as we will see later, this system will also bring us the possibility of creating rotations of the body of our characters for the moment of 90 degrees, but in the future, in the next tutorials, we will see complete rotation of 360 degrees. The last elements we find are the fingers, here too with their anchor point fixed to the base near the hand. An almost imperceptible addition in the scene that I only made in a small part, but it's another option that we can add to our project to make them more interesting. And here you can see the result, with hand and finger movement. The group obviously also includes the arm. In this it's composed of two levels, one also for the tattoo. Here is the clipping mask on the layer below I did this if I needed to move the tattoo in some cases, such as if I wanted to bring the arm up in this way, making the tattoo disappear behind it. The other arm is obviously composed in the exact same way. Even if the design is a little different, the elements are the same and grouped in the same way. To be more precise and have the same anchor point, duplicate the group of one arm, invert the position and drag to the opposite side. To then change the elements of the arm that have a different design, you just need to go and recover from Procreate what you have drawn, but I recommended that they must all be in the same position to match on dreams. And here the rotation with the same anchor points. And to conclude, the hand. Under the arms we find these elements of the belt that we have also seen before. And this one. These two elements will be very useful as we see at this point to make the twisting of Jinx's body more realistic. With a little bit of moving rotation and resizing of the belt, the twist will be more natural, creating a 3D twisting effect together with the other elements that we will see in detail later. Now moving farther down, we find the last two groups which contain the elements of the legs. But first I'll have Jinx jump, so you can see her legs better. With the legs I created a system similar to the arms. One group contains the whole leg and the other here same thing. Here, okay. Jinx in splits. Within the main group of a leg, here for example, we find a subgroup that contains the calf and the foot. This way I can make the character walk, run and jump as I want, rotating groups and subgroups. The doll system I made here was really helpful to me in avoiding having to draw every animation frame by frame. Once the character is built, we can move it as we like. And for the animation you want to do, I always recommend you to observe what surrounds you. Now that we have seen the elements of the body in detail, let's analyze the torsion that Jinx performs at this point. At this point the character rotates his body 90 degrees. This helped me in this sequence in some parts where I needed to obtain this result. The character goes from a lateral running state to being frontal to the spectator. I stopped Jinx here so you can understand better. I'm going to hide some elements for now, like arms and legs. The first group that we see in detail is the body. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay. Now let's see this torsion at this point. The base of the body in pink has this shape. Above we find the other elements on which I applied the clipping mask, and now we see why. But above the whole group we find another level. This. Here I applied a layer mask. This shape, which as you can see has the profile of the body, when Jinx rotates it hides a part of the levels underneath, making them take its profile. In this case, the layer mask turns out to be very useful to create the illusion of a fake 3D. Now let's see the elements inside the group. The first, the base of the trousers, this level will always remain still, while the elements above the rotation will move to the left. Like the tank top, moving to the left, and with the alter tool I also modify the shape a little to better follow the roundness of the body. Then we find this level which includes the shadows and the tattoos. This helped me to give an even more realistic touch to the rotation. Applying the clipping mask with these layers on the main body, the effect is remarkable. Let's undress Jinx for a moment. As I was telling you, with the clipping mask activate, this element by moving to the left creates this rotation. If I remove the mask, this is the layer I drew, with parts of the tattoo and shadows disappearing inside the mask and becoming visible again when moving. Even the tank top layers has elements that are hidden with the clipping mask. Another important factor in these cases is to check that all the animations have the same trend curve, here gradual entry and exit, to avoid misalignment. If you don't know what trend curves are, I created another tutorial to better explain what I'm talking about. I suggest you go and get it. Another thing that can be useful for you to know and understand if you use a warp tool, perform the animation you need on the shape. To return to the original state, select a keyframe before the original one to return to a point after the original shape. I also fixed the move keyframe so you understand better. Now that we have seen the body, let's look at the elements of the belt. For the first, to the rotation of the body, the level moves a little to the right and resides on its anchor point, as you see here, and with a little rotation upwards follows the movement of the body. This level here instead, at the point of origin, is squashed to the right, and then moves and widens towards the left. Let's always remember that we are on Dreams, a 2D application, but the things that can be done are fantastic. Now I'm going to discover the other elements. Let's start with the arms. In torsion, the main group rotates downwards and moved a little farther down. As a reference, I thought the hand must remain attached to the belt and rotate a little downwards to have the right perspective. For the other arm, I did something similar, but in this case rotating the whole group upwards. And I added this layer mask to cover the part above that goes behind the tank top. This layer is the same one I used to mask the body. In this case, by inverting the layer mask, I go to hide this part that remains behind the rotation of Jinx. Here you can see it better in the circle, what the mask is hiding. This trick was very useful to hide this part, small details, but basically for the final rendering of the rotation. To give you an even more precise idea to achieve this effect, taking the elbows as a reference, for example, on the left rotate upwards and on the right downwards. This is how I create the right perspective. Not bad, the final result. The last detail is the hand, rotated and scaled on the x-axis. Let's go and see the legs too. I resize this one at the final torsion point, enlarge a bit on the wall group on the anchor point. And for the left leg, I move it a little towards the center. Very interesting result. What do you think? I also had hair. The result is definitely excellent. Now that we have seen the body, let's discover in detail the rotation of Jinx's face. I hide hair first so I can work on face. Bold Jinx. I start from the basic pink shape. How to see the shape of face change when rotate the head. At this point with the alter tool I gave this shape to the layer to make the profile of the face. This is the shape I drew, and this alterate one, to create this rotation effect. Then we find this other level of lights and shadows that give volume to the shape. Even in this case, these elements have the clipping mask on the basic pink shape. If I remove it, we have the original shape of the lights and shadows. Moving left to right, this level, as I was telling you, gives volume to the face. Clipping mask and vamos! Let's move towards the nose. The elements are contained within a group because I had to apply a layer mask that has the shape of the nose in profile to be able to give the right shape to the rotation of the head. I change the brightness of the layer so you can see it better. If I remove the mask, as you can see, the levels of the nose in profile are visible, but with the mask applied I can obtain the result I want. Here it is. Same method also applied to the group containing eyes and mouth, but in this case the layer mask is the shape of the head. You may wonder why I didn't apply the clipping mask directly on the base, because in this case the eyes group is above the nose, and to obtain this result I duplicate the shape of the head, brought it above the eyes group, and applied the layer mask. This way the nose can come out of the shape of the head and create the perfect profile. The ears instead, this one on the right, moves towards the center. The hair on the left is resized and hides behind the profile. Very interesting. Now let's look at the hair, and I would say to start from the tuft here in front. This group is divided into 4 levels in total, which mainly served me to create the movement of the tuft in a dynamic way, so that I would be more natural. There are 2 shapes bigger and 2 smaller, and with the alter tool and in performance mode I made the flutter animation, as I showed you previously in another tutorial of mine. As far as rotation is concerned, the entire group containing the tuft moves in this way. Moving to the left to stay in the center of the forehead. Go hide it again so we can see the layers underneath the hair better. We find this, which is perhaps the most complex to understand. Here we find a group that contains 2 levels that hide the shape underneath on the sides. I remove the layer mask so you can see them. These 2 shapes hide part of the hair underneath, and when I rotate the head, they act like this. When Jinx shows us the profile, the right level reveals a part of the hair, while the shape on the left covers on the other side, following the profile of the face, and this on the right. I hide this group. The hair underneath instead moves to the left and rotates a little. Let's discover the group here and set the layer mask, and this is the result. There are also these levels at the hairline near the ears. In this group I set the clipping mask on the basic shape of the head. If I hide the level, as you can see, this group also disappears. Now I remove the mask so we can see the shape of this layer in detail. When Jinx shows us the profile, the shape moves to the left to give continuity to the hairline near the hair, and with the clipping mask active, the left part disappears. I also added this shade whose opacity changes with the rotation of the head, so as to cover a little of the hair level underneath. This level here with the clipping mask on the hair below. This layer also covers the line on the hair and is used to change the light along with the rotation. This adds volume to the animation. Now I'm going to reset the clipping mask. Like the level below, we saw before, clipping mask on the base of the face. Okay, we have seen all the elements that make up the head, and this is the result of the animation. We still lack Jinx braids and back hairline. This group, as we saw before, is below everything else. Here it's. As I told you before, this is the same group of the head, to have the same movement and rotation animations. This allowed me to keep the layers in the right position, without having to redo the animations from scratch. I hide the face layers so we can see the group underneath better, and the body. Okay. In the group at the bottom, we also find the same shade as before, the shape of the hair and the braids. This shape that rotates and moves with the head animations. And the 2 braids. Many levels, masks, etc. That may seem very complex to manage, but with some organizational work at the beginning, after that you will just have to enjoy animating your doll, instead of drawing everything frame by frame. There are still many things that can be done, and we will see them as we go forward in the tutorials. With everything you've seen today, you already have the ability to create your characters in this sort of fake 3D. My advice is obviously to start with something simpler, practice and then move on to more complex things. We have reached the end of another fantastic tutorial. Today I think it was more difficult than usual, but I want to remind you that if something is not clear, write me in the comments or on Instagram, the link is in bio. I'll probably make this file available so you can have fun creating your own animations with Jinx. And if anyone use my design and post them, tag me please. Thank you so much for watching, put like and